Good afternoon. I'm Carlos Fernandez, Policy Analyst at the Vegas Chamber. I'd like to thank you all for tuning into our conversation with the Clark County School District Superintendent, Dr. Jesus Jara, and with the Vegas Chamber President and CEO, Beth Sewald. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to explain some features of this call. In order to preserve high sound quality, we'll be muting everyone on the call besides our presenters to make it easier for everyone to hear. If you'd like to ask a question, there are a few ways you could do so. If you're joining this call on the web or through the mobile app, you can ask a question by using the chat feature on the interface. We'll ask your question on your behalf. You can also ask a question by clicking the hand raise button on the interface. We'll call your name and unmute your line so you can ask your question. Once you have asked your question, we'll re-mute your line so everyone on the call can hear the answer. In order to preserve time, we ask that you please keep questions brief, and we'll be taking all questions at the end of the call. And now please welcome the Vegas Chamber's President and CEO, Beth Sewald.
Thank you so much, Carlos, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining us on today's teleconference with Clark County School Superintendent, Dr. Jesus Jara. Dr. Jara, thanks for joining us today.
Well, Beth, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your time. Dr. Jara is going to give us the latest information regarding K through 12, the entire education system, and he's going to update us on remote learning programs that have been taking place and things that he's been working on related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Before I introduce Dr. Jara, I want to let you know about a great new program that we have at the Vegas Chamber. It's one way that the Vegas Chamber is going the extra mile to assist not only our members and to help them out with their businesses in the community, but it's another way that we're going to be able to give you a chance to pay it forward to our first responders with a brand new gift card program. We'll be giving you the rest of that information later this week. So we're really excited about that. It's called Switch to Kindness. So you're definitely going to want to find out more. I also want to let you know, we so appreciate the amazing feedback that we've been getting from our members. It means so much to us. I want to share just one message with you. It's from Patrick Casal, who is a managing partner of the Multi-Care Group. Patrick writes, the conference calls have been splendid and very, very encouraging. The most important thing we can all do right now is stay calm, work together, and communicate. If we all use or do these 3 steps, we can get through this most difficult time in our lives, and I'm proud to be a member of the Vegas Chamber. Thank you so much, Patrick, and if you're listening right now and on the call, we appreciate your feedback. It really means a lot to all of us, the entire team at the Vegas Chamber. Now, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you the Superintendent of the Clark County School District, once again, Dr. Jesus Jara. Dr. Jara, thanks again for being with us.
Well, Beth, thank you for having me. I mean, it's an honor, and just really appreciate your partnership with Clark County School District and all your members. It means a lot to us, and I really go back to that last feedback. We're trying to stay calm, stay focused on our kids and our families to get through this together, and I believe that the Vegas Chamber is a great partner, so just wanted to thank you and all your members and your staff.
Well, you're quite welcome. We're all in this together, as we keep saying. You know, I know you've been working a lot on the distance learning. I've been on a couple of task force calls that have involved that, addressing the digital divide, getting the Chromebooks for the kids and so forth. Can you give us the latest on all of your efforts related to the digital divide and the distance learning?
Yeah, no, and thank you. You know, one of the things that we have seen and really appreciate you as part of our equity task force that we put together representing our business community, and we really worked on the academics, and what this has caused is just really to put a magnifying glass on the inequities, and I want to just say that it's not just Clark County. This is a national and urban school systems, the inequities that exist. So we do have a huge digital divide, and really work fast to get technology out into so many of our children's hands. It started with our high school seniors to really, because that was my priority as a school system, as a team, wanted to make sure that our kids would graduate and wouldn't be penalized for this. So one of the things that we started looking at is obviously the devices or the lack thereof in certain communities. So, you know, in partnership with our business community and really putting together a task force to try to minimize the negative impact in our kids. So, you know, last numbers I received last week, close to $1 million of just this entire community pitching in for us to be able to get devices into our kids' hands. That was one of the most important components for us. And then, finding ways to maintain the health, and if you will, the meal insecurity in our community as well, by putting some of our learning opportunities not only in the hands of our students in paper pencil to try to minimize. But I could tell you that the task force in the meetings we've had, it's just really most important priority is to get the devices in our kids' hands. But then really long term is what is all this, I believe it needs to continue, because then is how do we invest in professional development for our teachers, for our principals, for our parents? How do we help educate everybody around our students? So, I just couldn't be more proud to be the superintendent here with this entire community to help our kids.
Dr. Jara, I know $1 million sounds like a lot, $1 million worth of devices. Is that enough?
No, it's not, and this is including the money that I put out from reallocating dollars. It was, some of the federal dollars that we had and reallocating resources, and we purchased about $13 million worth of devices to come in. We had about 60 when we started, when school closed. We had about 200,000 devices throughout the school. We had 320,000 kids, so about 64%. So we're inching up. Getting close to in the high 60s and the 70%. We still have so many devices, but this is not just about the device, but this is also then the connectivity. How do we connect our families? And this is where your members, our partners, Cox Communications, jump right in to find ways to help us with opening the Wi-Fi, the connectivity, and our families. Now we're really working together as a team to try to minimize and really eliminate that device. So we still have a long way to go, and we're counting on some of the federal dollars that have been allocated recently to get into the hands of our schools, so we can provide out the opportunities for our students.
You mentioned Cox Communications and the connectivity issue. I know that in addition to helping with the connectivity for those folks who weren't connected, they were also going to offer about 4 hours approximately per day of airtime. Is that anything that the school district is going to be able to take advantage of?
Absolutely. Again, jumping in to help us. And we, one of the first things that we started putting together, it was really content using our social workers. I go back to the feedback, right? Is how do we stay calm? How do we help our families? How do we prioritize the welfare and the health and mental health of not only our kids. I mean, this has been an up and down for me, for our adults. Imagine our children, imagine our families who've lost their jobs. So what we put out there, our social workers have content that we've put out into Channel 14, the 4 hours that we're getting airtime. Then we're going to move into instruction and having our teachers deliver lessons online. Again, the entire community finding ways and different modalities, if you will, to help our students.
Dr. Jara, I know one of your biggest concerns when this whole thing first started, and it was you're concerned about, of course, the health and safety of the kids, but you're also really concerned about the meals and providing them food for those kids who just wouldn't have had any other means of getting any food. How is that part of the program going?
That's immediately and I couldn't thank our food service department, immediately jumped in, put themselves in harm's way, not knowing, where we were with the virus. But, you go out and we started with 15 food sites in our schools. Then we had our partners, 3 Square and other nonprofits came in to help us. We're at 38 sites throughout our community, throughout our schools. Last week, a week ago, we were in spring break. Our food service department, stayed out there, on a 4-hour opportunity. Then we started continuing because we saw there were some hot spots. Then we had our refrigerated food vans that we're delivering foods throughout our community. And now the conversation is how do we continue to feed our kids and our families all the way through the summer? If parents they're not working, then how do we then at least give them some of the minimum and the basic needs? And we're jumping in, so we really work with the entire community and our staff to really make sure that we minimize some of the food insecurities for our families.
Okay, great. We have some questions coming in now, so I'll read a couple of these. And I know that at the Chamber and a lot of businesses throughout the community, this could potentially change our business model moving forward, right? Might change the way we do business in general. The question is, moving forward, how do you think that distance learning will change the way we teach students? Some good students may prefer this format. Are there any components you would like to see that becomes permanent?
Yeah, it's a great question. We were just talking about that, and I continue to challenge my team here, the team here in Clark County. What does school look like in the future? Kids may just enjoy and love this opportunity. So we're looking at ways that we can deliver this instruction to support our families, to support our kids, our teachers. Teachers are really, this could be a way for us to look at a different functionality as instruction. So we're looking at something like that. We had some partners that were providing some online learning. The teacher will never be replaced because you still need that adult to help our students to stay on task. But it's how does, do we need to look at competency-based learning opportunities? Do kids need to come to school 6 hours and 11 minutes anymore? And is it a 5-day week? So some of these conversations that we're already researching, and we're hoping to have some opportunities in the summer to look at schools a little bit different. And I'm getting some ideas from principals that it's this could be a way for us to really help battle some of the overcrowdedness in our schools.
That's true. On that point, I was just going to ask you that question. A lot of times when I'm looking for ideas or I want to share best practices, I call or reach out to some of my colleagues across the entire country. Have you been able to reach out to some other schools and maybe share some best practices with them?
We are. I sit on the Council of Great City Schools and as a school system, and we're having some of these conversations now. I'm one of about 5 superintendents that are really looking at what does school look like when we come back. And we're putting together nationally, that we put together a task force nationally, and I'm sitting in with my colleagues across the country, not only for us to look at instruction, but then the safety of our kids and our adults when they come back. So we're all working together to take advantage of our brain power, if you will, and our own staff to look at what I would say our educational model coming in the next year.
Well, and along those lines, I know in the business community, our members are looking at what are the best practices that our companies are going to start to implement. The grocery store model, as we sort of jokingly call it, with the 6-foot distancing, with, of course, the face masks and the partitions and so forth. Are there some things that you all, from a school district point of view, are talking about in terms of when you can reopen and to what degree? And if so, what are those best practices for schools? What might that even look like?
Well, and that's part of that was our conversation this morning. How do we get all our kids on the bus? Is it everybody comes on the same day anymore? And these are some of the things that we're starting to put in place, to think through for opening of school. Is it, historically, we were a double session at one point in this community. That's what I challenged the team. I said, let's go back and see. And I don't want your members to say this is where we're going, but we have to think outside the box. And maybe the 7 to 3 is not the way it's supposed to be. And so what I've done, put it out to the team and put it out to some of our principals. Our brain power is out in our schools. So it's how do they come back together to help us look at what that learning model may be when we come back to school. So those are some of the best practices, because obviously when you have 40 kids in a class, it's a little bit challenging for the social distance. So is it every other day? Now we have to look at some of the laws, obviously, for attendance and for funding. So we have a little bit more of I would say of some hurdles to go through. But I think one of the things that I'm really encouraged to start thinking about is, why are we not talking about competency-based learning instead of seat time? You don't have to sit in a class 180 days to then get that. If you master the curriculum in a shorter span time, then why not think through that process so then you can accelerate learning opportunities? And that's where we're going, and that's hopefully we can put something out up in the coming future.
Well, I know that we all have been asked to get out our crystal balls, and it's tough to look into the future, but have any decisions been made yet about when the school year might end, if anybody will be returning this year, or any thoughts on that? Is it too early to tell?
No, well, we're waiting. We're in constant communication with the governor's office. I know that my government relations team is in constant communication. We had a conversation with the state superintendent last week, and I expressed, to be candid, I expressed some concern coming back so early, where still the anxiety. Are we going to get, first of all my entire staff to come back, and then will parents send their kids to school if we open up in the early month of May? So those are, we're still waiting. So then we have a plan and say, okay, so that's a plan A. Plan B is if we come back in May 15th, which is 3 days before the last day of school. So for us, that then proposes some different challenges, and then do we then at that point stay with the distance education for the last 3 days of school and close out the year, and then start really, but I have the team on short term, and then obviously when we come back in August 13th, which would be our first day of school in the fall, what does that look like? And then in the summer, I wrote a piece yesterday on in the Vegas Sun, an op-ed. My biggest concern right now is the learning loss for our students, especially our elementary school students. So what partnerships are we now looking into for the summer programs? So do we then start partnering with the Boys and Girls Club, some of the other partners that are providing summer opportunities to catch up the learning for our students? Because I know how important for us to be open for the business, for the entire tax revenue to start generating, but obviously being safety, the safe and wellness of our students and our employees is a top priority for us.
I can only imagine. This next question is, can you share with us how the distance learning approach is developed and how is it executed at the school level?
So it was the first thing, it was developed with an equity focus. And I say that because it was important for us to start saying, okay, what is the basic curriculum and learning opportunities we're going to put out there that every kid will be able to access? And we found ways to be different modalities. Then we left it up to the school. One of the things that, where it could be criticized it was really that I made it, not that it was really around enrichment. It was really around providing an enrichment opportunities, because I knew, with a diverse community that we have, we would have a gap of students that, obviously, when their priority was just really some of the basic needs, food and shelter, as their top priority. So we made it optional in grading and allowing teachers and schools to make the decision about saying, let's go back into the third quarter that we had just finished, and how do we start making up some of that work, and then continue to get them engaged. We didn't want any new curriculum, because then you would really amplify that gap for our students. So it was on a focus on equity, and then the individual school and the teachers had the opportunity to do their own grading policies, as they normally do. One of the things that I remind folks, that we had some inconsistencies when our children were going to school brick and mortar. But now this is just really opening, because our parents are being that secondary teacher, if you will, at home now with the students.
They are, and so you mentioned the grading. That actually was kind of my next question. I assume that the kids are turning in their assignments and they're just being graded through the system's email or online.
Yeah, it's a two-way communication. They're having conversations with their teachers, and it's really, but it's mostly what they're seeing, especially in the secondary schools, is to make up the work. Maybe they want to do retesting or test correction and different things to improve their third marking period. We haven't decided, because we're waiting on the decision on the fourth marking period, and this is really to keep our kids engaged in the fourth marking period. Because I think if we make a decision about what we're going to do now, then maybe some of our high school kids will say, "Well, school's out."
That's a definite possibility. We have a viewer right now who is going back to the food question again. What families and students are able to access the food distribution sites? Is it only for students that are free and reduced, or is it more broad than that?
No, we're not going to ask if you're a free and reduced lunch. Basically, if you have a school-age kid at home, 1, 2, 3, we're going to give you a meal. We're not going to get into asking, what your lunch status is. We're going to give every single student or a parent or a family access to meals.
Okay. And you sort of touched on this, but what is graduation going to look like for the seniors this year?
I'm going to tell you what it's not going to look like because the kids were very clear with me where, I'm thinking, oh, we're going to do virtual. I think it would be really cool for the kids, right? And I said to the team, well, why don't we ask our kids instead of us making the decisions for them? And they were very clear to say, we don't want any virtual graduations. We want to wait and postpone it following the CDC guidelines. But Superintendent, please, help us, walk across that stage. A lot of our kids, they all wanted to do that. So the decision was made on Friday that we're going to postpone it, and then the individual schools will follow the CDC guidelines and the social distancing and work with their principals to come up with a plan.
They want their caps and gowns, and they want to throw them.
They do, and they want to see their friends. And they even said, hey, if our parents don't come, we just want to have our friends there, and and then we can live stream it. So we're going to work with our partners to make that happen for them. It's a special class.
Okay, very good. The next question is, how are the conversations or student-teacher? How is the student-teacher contact working, and is there a particular platform such as Zoom, for example?
So we're using Google Meet. We're using Google Meet at this point. Phone conversation. They're having video, email, two-way, any ways that they can do a two-way communication. I'm going to tell you, to be honest with you, Mary Beth, I'm always honest with you and our partners in our community. It's a little bit more of a challenge with our high school, with our secondary students. And actually, the senior class, they told me, we haven't been in school, Superintendent. This is great. And I said, well, you need to check with your teacher. But it's a little bit more of a challenge with our high school kids, just because they're older. They're 15, 16. Parents are struggling and just connecting with them as well. But I think our elementary school teachers, for the most part, those who, again, the connectivity and the devices, they're really finding, and I've seen great videos of our teachers doing some really good and neat assignments. So it's a hit or miss depending on our capability.
Okay. Next question is, how is distance learning impacting AP testing for juniors and seniors, and will those tests still be offered this spring?
Yes, that's a great question. The College Board jumped right in, and they're offering the exams online. So that's a great thing. And then actually the College Board also put some webinars for our students to access. So we share that with our teachers. And that's where we're also seeing that our teachers are those AP teachers are phenomenal, and they're going to do what they can to stay engaged with our students. So they're going to be offered, and our kids and our teachers are still engaged with our students to make sure they're ready for the test.
Okay. As a follow-up to the high school student comment, what can parents do to help with student engagement with distance learning?
So, I think it's helping with contacting the teacher and whatever the teacher, in ways that they can support it, and contact the school as well. To make sure that our students are staying engaged. Obviously our 9th and 10th and 11th graders are at a different point than our seniors. Just to start looking at, I'm getting also those kids that are worried about, if I'm taking pre-calculus, if I'm going to be ready for calculus, what assignments I'm missing. So these are things that I would ask the parent to contact the school principal so they can help them get ready for the next academic year.
Dr. Jara, I know that as you play a lot of different roles, and teachers do too, not just instructors, but counselors and psychologists and things like that. So we're getting some questions about guidance for social, how we move forward from here. This one says, when developing plans for the new normal, how do you propose families with 2 working parents navigate? Are you working in conjunction with the city's Parks and Rec? Childcare is a huge issue for us.
It is, and that's part of where I've been working closely with Commissioner Kirkpatrick and really how do we, in the summer, when it's safe, how are we going to partner and provide some of our resources and support for our students? So it's not just a recreational, because we have to really catch up on the academic loss. So we're having early conversations. I had the Boys and Girls Club also reach out to me this weekend to think about, can we borrow some of the devices and some of the opportunities there. So, that's going to be one of the things that we're planning and working on to be able to address and support. So we, if there's anybody out there that has a different idea or a partner with a park and rec, let us know and contact our community engagement office so we can get you in touch and then try to find ways to put our curriculum out there for them this summer.
Okay, very good. Your budgets are due to the state soon. What impacts to the budget are you working with?
Yeah, it's a great question. Our CFO, last couple of weeks ago, we submitted some of the unspent state grant dollars that we sent back because we weren't going to spend them so we can help, and we met that requirement, I think, in education, so that it was not into making any cuts. So we're looking at our May. In the middle of May, we have to submit our final our final budget. It'll be coming before the board. So we're having now conversations about what that looks like. But then we're waiting on some of the federal money to come in to see, how we can then eliminate some of the delta, if you will, where we're going to see the gaps, so we don't have to, minimize the cuts in our schools in the classroom.
Okay, this is another question about the food. What percentage of the food is being picked up at the designated locations, and is there any that's going to waste?
No, we take the food that because we've been taking account every time, and we've seen the increase. So the food is not going to waste. We take it out, and then we're distributing, pretty much all our food that we have. And it's not that we're throwing it away, because we've been really very meticulous in the count that per site.
Okay. Dr. Jara, we have Brian Walker on the line. He'd like to ask a live question. Brian Walker from the Retail Association of Nevada. Brian, go ahead and unmute your phone and ask your question.
Hi, Mary Beth. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Dr. Jara, I just had a question. Some of the COVID $3 on the federal government side included, I think, money for professional development in order to gear teachers up to be able to teach, remotely. Is that a plan, or are you planning on offering PD during the summer to kind of gear teachers up for that fight?
So Brian, that is a great question, because part of the things that we're also, as we're building this, I think it was Trustee Garvey that said at the last board meeting, we're building the space shuttle as we're flying it. One of the things that we're putting together a very comprehensive digital plan for August for when we come back, and it's going to include a lot of professional development, not only some of the money from the tech fund that we're getting, but this is going to really take into account from the federal money that's coming in.
Okay, so just to understand, so we're probably not during the summer we'd expect to see that, but then into the fall, as the school year returns, then we'll start implementing some of that professional development.
We're doing some now with the state. We're going to do that now. We're going to do it throughout the summer, and it's going to go on for a year. This is not something that is going to be done in 3-4 months, because it's really going to be about transforming education, and this is part of the plan that we're putting together.
I appreciate that. That's terrific to hear. So I appreciate that, and thank you for letting me ask the question, ma'am.
Thank you, Brian. All right, next question. You're getting a lot of questions, Dr. Jara, so thank you for staying with us for a little bit.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next question. How is this crisis affecting teacher recruitment?
Well,
recruitment.
I think that's, right now our team, we're hiring. we've continued to hire. Actually, we're opening up this week our fingerprinting because we had slowed that down as well. But now we, again, to settle and put a plan in place, so we're going to start going through the fingerprinting process. I don't have the numbers, but I know that our principals and our HR team has been hiring not only for teachers, but every other position that we have available to get the year started. However and when and how it's going to look, but we're still hiring. But I don't have the specific numbers, but we're going through the process.
Okay, next question. What plans and resources is CCSD offering for special education students?
So, thank you for the question. One of the things that we getting guidance from the U.S. Department of Education is really looking at how, first of all, we had to have IEP meetings because we had to change the placement, right, for the educational placement for students. And those went through Google Meet, went through, video conferencing because they had to get the family involved. So we're providing the services on a one-to-one. In this format, our teachers have been resourceful. So we have the guidance on ccsd.net in our distance learning education webpage that we created with the U.S. Department of Education for our students. The speech pathology and the one where we're finding a little bit of a challenge, obviously, is when we look at the physical therapy and the occupational therapy, because we really can't, that's a little bit tough with social distancing, but everything else, we're trying to do the best we can, but especially for our students that are medically fragile as well.
Okay. Can you share how support staff is being used to support distance education, such as bus drivers, for example?
So our bus drivers right now, they're going, we've done a lot of training online. They've gone through a lot of webinars and a lot of trainings to get them up, to maintain everything they're doing, but not to help with anything with distance education.
Okay. Dr. Jara, would you tell us too, what would you say have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned through this?
That's, you learn something every day, Mary Beth. This is where, obviously, this is something that I would say as a school system, we had to move this new world, but we were so far behind in the last so many years. It's just really around the basic education. So now one of the lessons learned is you have to have multiple plans, because what you think it's a great idea with the team and getting folks involved is it has to be so, it evolves every minute. And this is, to me, I'll be honest, I came, as from a state where we were dealing with hurricanes and closing schools, but it was for a short period of time and then you reopen. This was when I started going through the process of closing school. I didn't really think that we were going to be closed for so long, right? And that the lesson learned is that you got to have a plan that's just going to make sure that how do you transform and really change education for our kids and our teachers, and but I would it's just being flexible. It's hard work, and I'll tell you, Mary Beth, this is, I continue to, with my colleagues, some superintendents that have been in the business for 10, 12 years, very good superintendents. This has put them at a position that it's something that nobody's ever dealt with across the country. So it's the collaboration and really being flexible.
I would have to agree with you. We have another question. This one I think must come from a concerned parent. Okay, Dr. Jara. It says, Dr. Jara, how are you doing? I have a senior at CCSD and I can't imagine everything you have been juggling. Thank you for your efforts.
Well, thank you for the question. So, this is where, and I'm doing well. We continue to wrap our arms around each other here as a community, and as a team. And this is where I've said to the staff, we got to take care of ourselves. Because I always go back and sometimes I have up and downs at night and try to figure things out. And I always say, imagine our families, imagine our kids that their parents have lost a job, or both parents. So we always, go back and think about what our kids are going through, and that to me, that opportunity is what encourages me every single day. That, what we need to do is put things behind for us so we can serve our kids. But no, thank you for the question. We're doing well. We have a great team working, and I'm always encouraged with this community support.
Well, we hope you're doing well. That's for sure. It's a tough time.
Yeah, all of us.
Yeah. Next question. Could you please share what are the consequences on early childhood education during this time?
Well, I think there's the data is showing us that our babies, as I call them, our little guys, where you see the lack of learning, the learning loss is something that will have the greatest impact in their earlier years. Now, the encouraging piece, once we get them back, they're going to be the fastest to grow. We just have to be ready with our learning continuum. So, right now we're waiting, and I know that I've been in contact with the county commissioner. Obviously, the sales tax on AB 309 that the county voted for, obviously that's a concern at this point because, this entire city and community has been shut down. So we're just going to have to find ways with some of the federal dollars to see if we can, but, we may not have enough. So we're just going to have to catch them up when we get them.
Well, and that's kind of already answers in some part the next question that I have. This one is from Yuritsi Acosta from Teach for America. An elementary school teacher shared with me that at their Title I school, they are prioritizing distributing the limited tech they have to the grades 2 through 6. In a state where so much work needs to be done around early childhood education with our youngest learners, what can we do? What can teachers do? And what can the district do?
So one of the things that we're looking at is with the support of, obviously balancing all the budget implications that we have is where do we emphasize, our resources from the federal money. And this is why, to me, the summer opportunities with our partners is going to be critical. Because I think, because that's going to be the daycare, how do we maximize the opportunities that we have with our students in the summertime to be able to catch them up this summer. So, stay involved. Let us know. Any ideas, please no idea right now is going to is taken for granted. So anything that you have at this point, send it our way, and you want to get involved and volunteer, it's going to be important. All hands on deck.
Well, speaking of all hands on deck, your timing is perfect. We just got a message from Allison Shootman of Green Our Planet. Allison says, hello, my company is creating a library of online STEM lesson videos. Is there a way to share that with CCSD teachers? Would love to help teachers with their lessons. Thank you.
Absolutely. Send them our way to our curriculum department. Obviously, Brad Keating, also in government relation, will be able to get them into the right direction for us to be able to share with our teachers at this point. We're putting a lot of things on our website for our educators.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just go to the CCSD website. It's the best place.
Yep, and then and if not, Brad Keating through the chamber. I know that you can get a hold of, contact Paul or Brad, and we can get them into the right folks. But CCSD.net and our curriculum department. Okay,
very good. Another question here. This is about the unions. How have the unions responded to this pandemic? Have they been collaborative as assignments and roles have had to change?
Yes, we've had, we've been involved in conversations with them since the beginning to really partners. I couldn't go, our teachers are doing great work. They're jumping in. I get a story every day, an email from our teachers that they're helping. I couldn't be more proud of our educators at this point. So absolutely, we've been in contact with our unions and going through this process.
Well, Dr. Jara, we certainly appreciate your time today. We appreciate your service. And we know that your heart lies with the kids. You say that all the time. So we know you're doing everything you can. And as always, if the biggest chamber can be of any service to you or our members, always feel free to reach out.
Well, no, thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you for the opportunity to share what we're doing. I'll say this, I said, as I say to our community and our team, I said, we're not going to have all the right answers. We're going to make mistakes. But everybody needs to know that, we're going to course correct if we do. This is hard, but this is really on behalf of our families and the great community that I have the honor to serve. And thank you for your partnership. And I know you're always there for us, and so is your entire team and your members. So really, thank you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you. And I also want to thank our members and thank everybody for listening and watching today. And I want to remind you to join tomorrow at 2 o'clock is the LVGEA webinar, Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance webinar with the Small Business Administration. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in today. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Dr. Jara.
Bye-bye. Thank you.